right. Hey, guys. We are episode 41 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. We're going to tackle the topic of writing that synopsis. This is something that all of us struggle with. Even, I'm sure, professional writers struggle with this synopsis. But first, how was your week, day, that kind of thing?
It was busy earlier this week. I guess it's only Wednesday is when we're recording this, so we're only halfway through the week. But the beginning of it was busy because I'm learning how to do all the new stuff on my new project that I'm working on. So I'm learning new protocols, and that always time-consuming. Yeah. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm working with this guy in my lab, and that's fun. I almost died today.
Okay.
I almost got hit by a car, and it was like, I'm usually very dramatic about, I'm like, oh my God, I almost died today. And I almost was a pancake. I was walking across the street, and I've got like my little flashy lights that I push that's like, hey, pedestrians are walking. And I pushed the button, and then I waited for cars to stop. And so this one car stopped, and I was like, cool, thanks for letting me pass. And I'm walking across, and it's a 2-lane road. And so I'm walking across, and this first car has stopped, and then the second car comes flying. And the first car honks their horn at me to make sure that I know that it's coming. And I had already started to kind of stop walking, but I was already in the street. So if that car hadn't have stopped, then I would have been a pancake. And I think it scared the crap out of that first car because they're like, I'm about to watch this girl get hit by a car.
Yep.
So
oh my Lord.
It was exciting.
Well, I'm glad you weren't hit. So you're full of adrenaline now.
It gave me an immediate stress headache because it was like, boom, adrenaline. And it was funny though. My only reaction was I saw it coming too late. And so I kind of stopped, and then I just thinned my lips, and I was like, guess I'm going to get hit by a car.
It is what it is.
Yep.
Wow. Oh, that's terrible.
So that's how my week is going.
How about writing?
Also, I wrote 8,000 words in the past 3 days.
What?
And I mean, to be fair, it's like a rewrite. So I've already got material written out, and I'm just rewriting it for better style and punctuation, better descriptions, deciding what needs to get put in and be cut and that kind of stuff. But yeah, 8,000 words.
That is so fantastic. Do you know what's the total word count, or do you not have that?
It's 37,000 words at the moment.
Sweet. How long was it the first time? How many words?
93,000.
Oh, wow. So you're a third of the way there from the old draft.
Yeah, so I'm getting there. Yeah.
Well, my week, I had video court last week, which we did this podcast Wednesday. So I was right smack in the middle of the video court. I was so tired.
Yeah.
Then thankfully Saturday was college football, which I live for. And it's been beautiful weather here. For those of you all watching on YouTube, you can see I'm out on my deck. It is absolutely gorgeous here in Georgia right now. A little bit warmer than I'd like it to be. It's up to about in the low 80s, 81, I think it is right now.
Yeah.
I will take it all day long. So
better than 90.
Yes. We watched football this weekend, and it was actually really cold this weekend. So we actually had a little fire going, and Riley made s'mores over the fire. She could care less about the football, but she made s'mores. She was out keeping the parents company watching football while she ate all her s'mores.
While eating s'mores.
And then we actually ended up with Jordan and Darius over here too, who had some s'mores as well. The food always brings them home.
Absolutely.
And then I had my first in-person court in a long time yesterday.
How was that?
It was okay. We only had 3 cases on the calendar. 2 additional ones showed up. So we had 5 cases, and only 1 custodial parent appeared. So there were only 6 total people. So socially, coronavirus wise, it was about as safe as you can be. Everybody had masks. We all had the whatever that stuff is, hand sanitizer, which we used in between each hearing. There was plexiglass up everywhere. I gave the judge a Georgia Bulldog mask. He was thrilled to death.
Nice.
Yeah, so he was going to go home and wash it so he could wear it. He was very excited. I hope it fits him.
Yeah.
He went to the Georgia game this weekend.
Oh, gosh.
He had told me I'm not going into that stadium. Absolutely not. And then he's like,
there he is.
It was all right. He said that there were so few people there that when you get up to go to the bathroom, you didn't even run into another person. That's how
Wow, that's crazy.
few. Yeah. So he said it was great. He had a great time. So he was all fired up about it. So this weekend, well, I don't know, are we a home game or away game?
Home game.
So he'll probably go and he'll wear his little mask. He'll be so happy. So I'm proud that I did that. So that was, all I've done is court. All I've done is my real job, my day job. So no crafting, no writing, no nothing.
Yeah. Sounds busy.
And I keep thinking, oh, I'm going to have time next week. And then the next week, nothing happens. Like today, I was getting ready for the October video court dates. I sent out all those emails. So now I'm starting to get responses from people on those emails. It never ends.
I feel that. I got like 5 hours of sleep 2 nights ago because I wanted to write. I was doing that rewrite. And I looked at the clock and it was like 12 and I had to get up at 6. So I got 6 hours of sleep that night.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what are you eating? It looks marvelous. What are you eating over there?
It's that, I've done it before, but this is with a different cheese. So it's the salami and the pepperoni.
Yeah.
With some goat cheese wrapped in it. But
roll it?
Yeah, and it's got honey goat cheese in it this time.
Oh, that's your favorite.
It is my favorite, and I can't ever find it anywhere. And I went to North Carolina with my girlfriend this past weekend, and their Ingles had it, so I bought it.
I think our Ingles carries it. Do you not have an Ingles in Athens?
No, it's all Kroger and
Publix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are you drinking?
Oh, I have a vodka soda with lime.
Oh, woohoo! She's drinking today. Yeah. I've already been drinking.
Oh, good.
So I'm drinking. I'm really excited about trying all these different wines, and hopefully some of them will sponsor us and pay us in wine. My husband would like them to pay us in money, but I'm good with the wine. So today I'm drinking a canned wine. I'm so curious about these canned wines, and this is Underwood, and it's rosé. And on the can, it doesn't give you the information about carbs and stuff, but online it's supposedly low carb. It was listed under a keto-friendly drink, so I'm hoping it really, truly is. It's very good. I love rosé wine, so I'm drinking that in my huge glass that your little sister Riley gave me. I told her I would use it as much as I could this month.
Yeah.
And I'm eating shrimp cocktail on her little gnome Halloween plates that she gave me. So I got some cute pictures, and I am so far behind on posting pictures, y'all. I'm going to end up posting pictures from the last month. Yeah. It's been crazy, but I will get them out there. I've been doing better on Instagram than I have been on our website. Our website is the place where I'm supposed to post all the recipes and all the pictures, and I'm behind on it. But Instagram, I have been posting pictures of, so if you want to check out the pictures. And we had one listener request that we post the drink recipes on our Instagram, so I started doing that as well.
Nice.
So yeah. I have a joke.
Oh, of course you do.
It's just one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a writer joke. Person. How does writing work? Writer. Well, you type and you delete. You rethink, then you do 187 minutes of research and correct it. You reread it and wonder if you have a grasp on the English language. Then you revise, and the person says, so then you're done with the book? And the writer says, no, then you move on to the next sentence. And I think we all can appreciate that.
That is sadly accurate.
It is sadly accurate, though.
Good grief.
So writing the synopsis, I think this is going to be a long episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's so big. It's such a big part of writing if you're planning to submit to agents. Yeah, it's very important.
So we tried to condense what we could into this, but it may be a longer episode, which some of the listeners I think love. Yeah. They like the longer ones, especially when it gives this insight. So hopefully... Y'all, I've considered breaking it into 2 separate episodes, and I thought, well, it's really this is one topic. So why don't you take off? You start.
All right. Yeah, so we always hear about how difficult it is to write a synopsis of our novels. Like, I mean, how do you condense 90,000 words into a short summary that encompasses what your novel is about?
Yes.
It's like seemingly impossible. So first of all, what is it? It's a short summary of your book that forms part of your agent submission pack. So if you're planning to submit your work to an agent and hopefully get representation to eventually be published by a big publishing house. So, you know, it's not like the blurb on the back of your book, but
it is not. I would say be very aware of what the agent is requesting, because some of them don't want synopses. The last two that I submitted from the writers conference, they already had my synopsis in my pitch, so they didn't want it. So follow the directions of what the agent you're pitching to wants.
Right, absolutely. But yeah, so it's not like the blurb on the back of your book. It's all encompassing of the main plot of your novel. So think of it as like a written spoiler for your story.
Yeah, I think so. What it really is for, the whole purpose of it is to familiarize the reader, which generally is an agent, with the plot and how that plot unfolds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's the main gist of it.
Well, and the fact that the agent wants it, so of course we're going to do whatever the agent wants.
Yes, they ask for something, you get it.
Yes.
And so, like, piggybacking off of that, you know, what else is the purpose of a synopsis? And it's, you know, it'll tell the agent that you're submitting to whether the novel is worth an investment of their time, which is huge, because you want them to request full manuscripts that they'll read the whole story and eventually offer representation.
Yeah, you've got to get them that idea across without them having to read your 90,000 word manuscript. They don't have time for that. So yeah, that's what the purpose, I think that's a better purpose than what I said.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a tool to make someone like an agent or an editor want to read the full material.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that it boils down to two things. It's to convey the contents of your book, and it's to be intriguing to make that agent want to read your book.
Right.
And also, you know, we've heard this before when we were in Atlanta. I think it was Atlanta conferences that told us this. The agent wants to know that we have the ability to create a complete, well-rounded novel.
Yeah.
And the synopsis gives them a view into that, because so many people have great ideas. And in a pitch, you know, you're there for 5 minutes and it sounds wonderful. The synopsis is the backup to that, so that they can actually look and see this person really does know how to write. They really do have a full novel with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, so the synopsis gets that across as well.
Right. I think that's a really good point. And I think you're right that we did hear that at the Atlanta conference, because I vaguely remember. It
might have been Dragon Con.
Oh, I guess it could have been that too.
Yeah, it was one of the two. Is that your cat?
Yeah, he got very tall, so I could see him over my computer, and he's not he's not that tall, which means he was on his back feet. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and I think that's a lot of what agents are looking for when they're reading a synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
So what does your synopsis need to do? It needs to tell an agent directly and clearly what your plot is. So it needs to give a clear picture of the narrative arc, like the main points of your story is really what they want to see.
Yeah.
Clearly identify your main characters, and at least hint at major, oh my goodness, I am only like 3 sips into my drink.
You gotta catch up with me, girl.
I know. Agents are interested in characters. So you want to hint at your major character development arcs, because that's the whole point. The whole reason that your readers are reading this story is because they want to connect with characters and they want a cool story, and characters make sure to show what your hook and pitch is for your novel. And I thought this was an interesting point, because, you know, where do you put that in a synopsis?
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you start off with a hook like you do in a query? I mean, this is so hard. It difficult.
It is. I don't think you want to put too much like take up too many words with what your hook is, but I think you can work it in towards the beginning of your synopsis, because that's what should hook your reader in the first place.
Okay.
Because that's going to be what's going to make whoever want to read it is your hook. So it should be somehow involved anyway, I feel like.
Okay.
Demonstrate the story's appeal and how plot momentum increases through your arcs and your characters' actions.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. You want to be able to show the agent, which is generally who reads synopses, that you are capable of making your plot flow from beginning to end. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of ties back into showing your agent or the agent that you can write a book.
Yeah.
Share an ending that feels satisfying. So yeah, you want to tell the ending. It's not a query letter or a book blurb, so you want to tell everything that happens.
Now, this is so interesting. As I was researching for this episode, I found this one article and I was reading it, and it was very well written. He's a writer, I'm sure. And it said, but don't tell the ending. I'm like, wait, what? Are we talking about query letters? What? And I went back and reread it. And then I started to research that question. I'm like, that's the first time I've ever heard someone tell you not to give the ending. Yeah, apparently, there are actually two forms of thought out there on this issue. And one says that the purpose is to tease the agent into wanting to read the book. And the second theory is that it's a report about the book. And so
I'm more along the lines of the second one, because I feel like the whole point of a query letter is to tease the agent into wanting it. And then the synopsis is to tell them, hey, I wrote this book, here's the whole thing.
And I can do it. You know, it's not just an idea in my head. I really have written it, and here's how the flow goes. Right. It's very interesting. The tease theory is that everything sent to an agent or editor or publisher is supposed to be a sample of the writer's style, so that each item needs to be creative and entertaining.
I don't necessarily agree with that on a synopsis.
This is the first time I ever knew there was even a question about that. The report theory is that the emphasis is not on how you write, but truly what happens in the story, so that the agent can know, is this a well-rounded story? Does it have publishing potential?
Right.
It blew my mind. I had no idea that there were really conflicting ideas, because the only thing I've ever heard is the synopsis is the place where you have to give the ending, so that the agent knows you have the ability to wrap up a story. You've got a complete beginning, middle, and end. So, but basically, I guess what it boils down to is do whatever the agent that you're submitting to wants.
Right, which is so interesting though, because, you know, I've been submitting to agents now for this year, and all of them, you know, when they ask for a synopsis, they're just like, give me a synopsis.
Yeah.
You know, they don't
tell you.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like that's difficult to figure out what exactly you're supposed to do. And I think I would lean towards the report. I think the query letter is what's supposed to hook your agent. That's the whole point of it. You give your pitch, you give your hook, and you explain, you know, who's the character, what are the issues, what's the conflict, that kind of thing.
You know, we often talk about rules are made to be broken, but I really think in this instance, you've got to show your potential agent that you can do this. You've got the ability to go from start to finish, and you don't leave it hanging so that the agent's going, well, were they able to tie it up or not? I don't have time to deal with this. I'm moving on to someone who can.
Right, I think so too. I mean, because it's also a rule to not start your query letter with "Dear Agent," and that's a hard, fast rule.
That is a hard, fast rule.
So there are some rules that you probably shouldn't break, and I think the synopsis really is meant for, like we said, to show the agent that we have a well-rounded and complete story.
Yeah, it just surprised me so much, and there were several articles on it, and I was like, oh my God, I have never seen this before. And all the seminars that you and I have gone to, and all the training that we've gone to, not once. In fact, it's been the opposite. They've drilled into our head that you must let the agent know you're capable of wrapping this all up and ending that book. So you've got to let them know the ending.
Yeah, 100%. So
it was very surprising to me.
I also think that's really surprising. Obviously, do your own research. Like, we're not the end all be all.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to listen to us.
We are the gods of writing. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
yes.
No.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So let's consider a few things before we get into the how of writing a synopsis. How long should it be? This really depends on the agent you're submitting to. So you'll probably end up with a few different drafts with a few different file names or whatever.
Like 50.
Right. Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Like
no,
50.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. A standard is 1 page. But personally, like when we went to that Atlanta conference just this past March, an agent gave me her card and was like, please submit your work to me. It'll ask for a synopsis. I don't care if it's 8 pages. She's like, just give it to me, and that's how it is.
So she was the one wanting to see if you could really tie all this up into a beginning, middle, and end book. A lot of us are creative, and a lot of us have these great ideas, but you've got to be able to prove to them that this is a whole story. In order to be published, that book on the shelf has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right. Yeah.
Where was I? Where were we?
You've got some notes underneath the 8 pages.
Oh yeah, I'm a lot through this wine. Okay. Oh yeah. So my point was, this is part of what makes the writing of synopsis so hard. Like that agent told you 8 pages, and I've seen agents say no more than 1 page.
Right.
So what do we as the writers do? We all want to be published. How do we do that? The other thing I found when I was researching this is I came across so many quote standards.
Yeah.
I was reading them to your father this afternoon while I was doing the research. I'm like, okay, listen to this sentence. The standard of synopsis is blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, listen to this one. The standard of synopsis is blah, blah, blah. Totally contradicting. And he's like, what are you reading? I'm like, I'm working on my podcast research. But, the standards vary. I think the main thing is to do it know who you are submitting to.
Yeah.
I think this is a great time to say, yes, we're in a world now where we can submit multiple submissions.
Right.
Don't submit them blindly. Say, oh, I'm going to pick these 25 agents and just mass send. No, you have got to look at each of those individual agents and do what they want. You've got to read their submission criteria. You've got to read what their rules are. Some of them don't even want synopses. They want the query. They want 3 chapters, whatever. So pay attention, do your research, or you will come off like oh, dear agent.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can, but it won't get you that agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and like you said, 2 pages is another standard length that I found.
I know.
So super interesting. Just be aware of that and do your research on agents if this is something you're interested in.
Yeah.
So also you want to make it neutral, which is something that I found super interesting because I've heard conflicting opinions.
I have too. I've got more on that later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but what I found was mostly be clear and to the point. And it says use business-like language. And I'm not sure that I agree with that because I've also seen sources say that you're also trying to get across the point that your book has a tone.
Right.
You have a voice as an author.
And maybe the article you were looking at was for a nonfiction. We are urban fantasy, which is a totally different, and even all fiction and fantasy, I think, like you said, it's not a business book.
Right.
It's not a report. It's going to be a book that involves feelings and things. So I don't know about that business-like language, other than you do want to, maybe they're trying to say you should be professional. You shouldn't say, slang, and you shouldn't, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure either. I feel like it makes sense on the one hand because you are trying to convey your story just like as a product, but I think as your product, it also needs to get across that you have a style as an author. So,
true. I think so too.
Yeah. It's okay to tell and not show in your synopsis.
Yes. It is, and in fact, that probably is the better way to do it, but be very careful when you tell and not show, because telling can be boring. And you don't want to say, first they did this, then they did this, next they did this, then they did this. That gets boring. So carefully select your word choice. I was trying to find an example. I'm like, don't say, she's sad. Say she begins to feel the deterioration of whatever the world is, just think about your word choice.
Right. I think the point here was somewhere along the lines of don't be overly
flamboyant.
Not even flamboyant, but just like you don't want to use a million adjectives. You don't want to be super descriptive, and because you only have a limited number of words that you can use.
Right.
And so you don't really want to use like, oh, the beautiful meadow. Like no one cares about the beautiful meadow.
Right.
They care about what the character is going through and what they have to do, and like
yeah. So choose your words carefully to get those points that you think are important across.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put character names in bold or caps when you introduce them. I think I mostly heard you do it in caps.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
But see, now I'm old, so I've been submitting from a long, long time ago when things were very different. So you probably are going to have to teach me, Mom, they don't do that anymore. But that's what I was told. Back in the day, we underlined words to show italics, and now we just italicize them. I know. You're not wrong. So, know what you're doing, and I think that they do expect names in caps, is what I have heard. But bold may be the new orange.
I don't think so. Excuse me.
Yeah, that didn't quite flow.
Wow. Okay.
You know what I meant.
I did, and it was just very funny. Yeah, so I think, I've also heard that it's, you put the character names in caps, and doing this allows the agent to pinpoint how many players are in your novel and how significant they are to the story.
Do be careful to not, this is what's also so hard about synopses, is you've got 50 million characters in your book. Well,
I cover that in a second.
Okay. So you just don't want your whole manuscript, your whole synopsis to be full of capital letters all the way down.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, okay.
But as a follow-up to that, always provide a brief introduction to your characters when you drop their name. So, I have Ava Raines in my book, and so I would say Ava Raines, a young detective who was assigned to supervise Mac's life, would be a decent enough introduction to give the agent an idea of who this character is and why they matter.
Okay.
Point of view, even if your novel is written in the first person, like mine typically are,
yes,
you want to write your synopsis in the third person.
Yes.
And that's just to give it, it gives it a more professional sound.
And present tense.
Yeah.
Is what I'd normally hear. Third person present tense.
Yeah.
Is usually. And then if we're going to talk about formatting.
Sure.
This is another thing where there's contradictory information. Some say double spaced. Some say single spaced with double spacing between the paragraphs, which is honestly the way I've always done it, the second way.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's, like you said, dinosaur times and what the preferred, and they don't tell you. Your agents don't tell you.
Well, it's super interesting too, because I have noticed in my adventures with querying that a lot of agents use Query Manager, or they have you copy and paste it straight into the email, or whatever.
Yes, and that screws up your entire formatting.
Right, which is my point here, is like it doesn't necessarily matter because they know that it's going to screw up the formatting. I don't know that they necessarily care if they ask for it like that.
See, that's another example of dinosaur times where it mattered because it was on a hard copy.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
While we're talking about spacing and point of view and that kind of thing, voice, which is what you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
There is a lot of contradictory information out there about how to do this, what kind of voice you put in your synopsis. Right. I've read you want it to be formal yet engaging. Okay. I have always tried to get, like Frickin' Fairies is a great example of this. She has a definite voice.
Yeah.
That is probably, of all of my books, that is the best portrayal of character voice that I've ever done.
Right.
And if I can carry that voice into the synopsis, that's great. That's not saying I'm going to be slangy like she is. You know, she says really all the time, and she's a modern young millennial type person. She is, and that's not how you want to write your synopsis. Wow. Synopsis. It's a delicious one. That's an inside joke, y'all. But if you can get that across carefully into your, I think it all comes down to word choice. Then you do want to do that. I want my agent, when she's reading my synopsis, to get the feel of how the novel reads.
Right.
And that other teasing theory is write the whole thing that way, but you don't want to, I think you don't want to go overboard that way. Yeah. But I do want to get her voice in there. And that's one thing when I was doing the Twitter pitches.
Yeah.
When we were doing, was it Mad Pit? The last one?
Yeah, that might have been
Pit Mad, that's it. I had a lot of comments from people saying what a great voice this pitch has, because I put it in Beck's voice.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not a bad thing necessarily to do, depending on your characters. It might not work in all books. Like, I don't think I would want Trick's voice out there. She's scary.
It's a little dark.
Yeah, she's a little dark. So, but Beck is funny and light, and, that draws people in. So if you be very careful in how you do it, but I don't think it's a taboo thing to write that in there.
Right.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of how each character has a distinctive, unique voice, the other purpose of, I guess I should have said this back up in purpose, but the other purpose of a synopsis is to help the reader see how your novel is unique. The theory that it's a report, yes, but it's a report of how your novel is going to be the next bestseller, which is what an agent's looking for.
Right.
What is unique about it? How is this different than all the other romances, if it's a romance, or all the other urban fantasies, if it's an urban fantasies? So be sure to emphasize the uniqueness of what your novel is about in the small little time frame that you have to do it, the small little words.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really good point, because the whole idea of submitting your work to an agent is to stand out and make them be like, oh, I want to represent this book, and I want to go and get that published.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I think that's good. And then one last thing on this section is about titling your document. Just before you send it to an agent, make sure your file name itself is not something like synopsis.doc. That's too generic.
Oh, good point. Because then if they have it on their computer, they've got 50 million synopsis.doc. They want, what do you do? The name of your book? What do you do?
Yeah, include the title of your book and use dashes between words. So like under dash the dash illusion dash synopsis.doc would be mine for Mac's book.
So that better that than your name as the author, like, Sherry Ellison synopsis doc or whatever.
Yeah, I think they're more interested in seeing, different works as a whole or whatever. And I'm sure you could put your name in it, like Ellison dash under the illusion dash synopsis.doc. Okay. Would be my idea.
That makes sense.
But the point is to make it stand out, like everything else, because you don't want it to get lost, or they'll be trying to find it on their computer.
Yeah, that would be horrible if they were like, I've read this great synopsis. Oh, I can't find it.
They can never find it. Yeah.
Yeah. How terrible would that be?
Everything. Don't send them your book as book.doc. Like.
Good point.
Just be aware of your file names and how that might appear to an agent who receives literally thousands of queries.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at this. Don't forget, put yourself in the agent's shoes, and they're seeing 50 million of these synopses come in. And how can Now, I'm not saying you want to do it on purple paper, which was something we were warned against back in the day when we sent in hard copies. They're like, don't do it on purple paper to try to get attention. But you do want to stand out because of your story, not because you've done some cheap trick.
Right. Yeah. All right. So beyond that, what are some tips for actually writing this damn synopsis that's, taking over our lives?
I'm going to open some more wine.
That sounds wonderful.
I brought it out because I knew I was going to be done because I had started drinking before you got on. This is a Boda Mini Dry Rosé, and it's like this little milk carton bottle thing.
It is. It reminds me of chocolate milk almost.
I know. So I'm excited to see how this goes. So you talk, and I'm going to try to open it. Oh, it won't open.
I just want to say, I think it's funny that you're drinking boxed wine.
I know. Isn't that great? I'm so excited. And canned wine.
Oh my God.
I think this is great. I'm so excited. And then the little, what was the one that I hope sponsors us? The usual wine.
Oh, yeah.
They're in those little beaker looking things. Beakers, not flask. That's it. I'm probably going to need to be quiet and just let you do the rest of this.
Good grief. Well, I'll get started at least, but you've got notes in here, so.
Okay.
So what are some tips for actually writing the synopsis? Don't think of it as condensing 90,000 words into 500 words. I feel like that's just a really good way to psych yourself out and be like, I can't do that. I'm not going to try.
And honestly, that's how I feel every time I sit down to try to write a synopsis. It freaks me out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, same.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm actually really glad that we did this episode, because
me too.
It made me think about it from a different angle. That's a very weird colored wine.
It's very pink.
Oh,
it is very dry though. I like it. I like it a lot. I bet it has less carbs than the Underwood.
It doesn't look pink on my screen.
Oh, it looks kind of brownish.
Yes.
That's cool. Well, that's still kind of.
It's fine. It's brown. It's fine.
It's pink. I promise. It's pink. Okay.
So trying to think about it in terms of, I have this giant book, how do I make it one page, is going to drive you crazy. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So instead, use the structure of your knowledge. Oh my goodness. Use the structure of your novel.
She's catching up with me, y'all.
Maybe a little. To write it. Also known as the bones. Use the bones of your story to write your synopsis. So that is the status quo. Like, why is your main character's life normal? The inciting incident. What takes them away from that normal? Major plot developments, which is the plot of your novel. The climax of your novel, and the resolution.
I kind of have a tip with this, and this is how I sit down. When I sit down to start a synopsis after I stop crying, I start with listing all of my plot points. Sit down, and you can do this in your writer's journal. We talked about the writer's journal, or on your computer, or however you want to do it, but list all your plot points. And then when you're looking at the 50 pages of plot points, you can start going back and taking out, okay, this one really isn't substantive to getting across the point of my book.
Right.
But that's what helps me. That's how I start.
That's a really good idea.
That's the only way. Otherwise, I really do. It freaks me out so much. I just sit down and start writing. This happens, then this happens. The other thing I've done, which I'm working on now, the rewrite of my very, very, very first book, the Twins. And that one has so many plot lines. What I'm doing with it is writing down what happens in each chapter. So at the end of that, I'm going to have a list of every chapter. And I can then, with my synopsis, I'll be able to look at this chapter wasn't. Now, every chapter should be important to the development of your story, but for the purpose of the synopsis, you've got to choose the big bones, like you were talking about, the bones of your book, the big bones, not all the 56 bones that are in your feet, or however many, I don't know how many bones are in your feet.
Okay.
But that was my point.
No, that's a really good point, because I was gonna add in here. I do my timelines for my novels in PowerPoint, and so I actually go by a matter of events through my timeline in my book, and I separate it out by days and by chapters. And
so, have you used your PowerPoints to write synopses?
No, because I actually didn't do PowerPoints when I was first writing my synopsis, and I haven't looked at my synopsis since I wrote it the first time, and I probably should. But
yes, okay.
But no.
But if you have that, if you do that from the beginning, then you'll have something to go and look at when you're trying to write the synopsis. I think that's a great idea, because that is what most of us writers say. How do I do this? How? Yeah. Okay, we all know what it is. We all know what we're supposed to do.
But how do you do it?
How do I do it? So that's a great idea.
Yeah. Another thing is, don't focus on detail as you're writing it. Just simply write out the plot points, like you were saying, of the above structure that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So give it about 300 words, and remember, your total synopsis is supposed to be around 500 to 800. I think 500 is nearing the 1-page mark, and that's a really good start. Don't go too in depth about the setting or character backgrounds yet. Just kind of get down the bare bones and focus on plot mechanics and how they pertain to your overall novel.
I do think, because we write fantasy and urban fantasy, that the setting is important, because there is world building. It might not be this world. You know, the other kinds of genres have the luxury of not having to deal with that issue, because they're in this world. Everybody knows 1800s if you're writing a historical romance. Or in our circumstances, we do have to set the scene, so to speak. We have to at least give the flavor of what's different about our novel world from this world.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
I don't think that's, I'm not saying that you shouldn't mention the setting at all. I think it is very important, because, I've got Max set in Savannah. Obviously, I tell that I'm in Savannah, Georgia. She works in a restaurant there, which is huge on River Street and all that kind of stuff.
Well, also the setting, to me, is not just that it's Savannah, but it's a magical Savannah.
You cut me off.
Can you not hear me?
No, You cut me off.
Oh, because
I wasn't done. I wasn't done. I was going to say, so I mentioned that I said it in Savannah, and I also get across that she thinks that she's the only one with magic, and that changes. That's the whole point of her story, is like she realizes that she's not alone. And so then, I've set up what the magic is in that world, Mother.
Have I read your synopsis on Mac?
Yes.
That's the one that you submitted, so I have read it.
Yes.
I need to reread it.
Yeah, it probably needs to be reworked. I think, I don't have any active submissions out there right now. Work is really overwhelming, and to come home and sit down for 2 hours and put together a query package.
Yeah, because this is not a fun thing to do, y'all. We all know writing is what we love. This business side of it is not something that we all enjoy. We have to do it. We have to learn how to do it. We have to learn how to do it well. But it's not what we really want to be doing.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult. I'd rather just write books. So I've obviously been doing that with my 8,000 words in the past 3 days.
Yeah.
So, but no, I agree. I think you definitely want to set the scene for urban fantasy. There is a point to why we have set it in this world and yet used magic, and I think that's important to get across, especially if you're trying to market it as urban fantasy.
I mean, and if it's a sci-fi, it's super important. If it's set out in a spaceship in space, that kind of thing. I've just been watching. I watched the first season of Away with Hilary Swank. Excellent series so far. But yeah, you've got to let your agent know in your synopsis, this is set, on a voyage to Mars in a spaceship. So, but like you said, be careful with your words. You have limited words. So somehow you've got to get that feel across with just a few, and it's going to take you rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. I mean, every time I submit frickin' fairies, I rewrite the query letter.
Yeah.
I mean, you do.
Yeah. Well, the next thing is to layer in information about who your characters are and how the events of the story impact them.
Now, yeah, characters.
I know I just said that you don't want to focus on detail, but you still want to get across why we care about the characters in the story. Yeah. And remember, when you were making your structure before, you used about 300 words. You got 200 words to play with, and that's where you can bring in character arcs and character development and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got to, I mean, I think one of the things that's super important in books is what the character's motivation is.
Yeah.
So I think getting that across in your synopsis may be something that will help you get across the point of your novel. Wow, I'm really going downhill now, guys. Okay. It's very good wine. The brown wine that you all are seeing. It is kind of brownish in this light out here.
See, it's brown. But that's all to say that synopsis writing is actually starting to feel a little bit more like an art and not necessarily a report.
I like that because it is this. It's hard. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Include your character arcs and why the character is impacted by the plot mechanics that you've written into your synopsis already using the structure that we've talked about. I think that's big. I think getting across why all of these plot events matter to your character is what is going to draw in your agent or the agent that's reading it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part to include.
Yeah.
Dedicate a set amount of time to work on your synopsis. I think this is a big one because these things are super hard to write. I've sat down to try to write them. I'm pretty sure mine isn't great, but just set aside, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever time you have to work on this synopsis and just like set aside that time specifically for your synopsis. And I think
because like we said, it's not our favorite thing to do. We put it off. You've got to make time to do it. I think that's a great idea. Schedule it in.
Absolutely.
Put it in your calendar. Tonight's synopsis night.
Right, because it gives you a completely different mindset about it. Is you're sitting down just specifically to write your synopsis, and so hopefully you'll be able to get it done.
Yeah, agreed.
And after that, like once you have it written, look at it with fresh eyes. So let it sit for a couple of days, let it sit for a week or whatever. Look at it again, go back over it, and then also give it to someone else. Like I gave mine to you to read.
Yeah. Okay, so we have an agent saying, I want you to submit to me. And we're like, oh my God, we have an agent. And we're wanting to just get it in. Mm-hmm. It's super important to step back and, like you said, look at it with fresh eyes. I mean, to me, every time I submit Frickin' Fairies, I re-look at my synopsis and I'm like, why did I do that? That's not well written. So the more times you can put fresh eyes onto your synopsis, the better it's going to get. I promise you. Yeah. So yeah, several times you need to look at it. But I understand the desire, and you don't want to keep an agent waiting either. They've asked for it. It's supposed to be ready. You promised it was ready when you queried them. So you need to be working on the synopsis ahead of time, but that doesn't mean that once they ask for it, you're not re-looking at that going, oh crap, this is bad. What do I do? Taylor, help me. So, to get that fresh look at it, do paragraph writing like Taylor and I do, or go work on another novel. Like we all have several works in progress. That helps you get out of that bogged down too inside of that book. Sometimes you need to step away, get your mind on something else, and then come back and you can see things a little bit better. I mean, I've been so bogged down in my story before that I can't even, I don't even know what's been said, what hasn't been said, because I'm so familiar with it. So step away.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that in all things writing, because, I'll stop writing for a week or so on one project, and then I'll come back to it and I'm like, oh, you know what I could do with this? And so I get fresh ideas. And I think the same can be applied to a synopsis. Is you've got, your structure down, you've got this 500 words, and then you can let it sit and then come back to it and be like, oh, actually I could change this and make this much stronger this way.
We could go with Hemingway's idea. write it drunk and edit it sober.
Absolutely.
I like that idea.
Absolutely. Okay, so are there things that we should avoid when writing a synopsis? And like with most things, probably so. Don't add in every subplot that you have in your novel. You don't have that much space to get across your main points, let alone your subplots. And the agent doesn't really need to know all the nitty gritty unless they pertain to the ending of the story.
This is so hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I have all these secondary characters that I love that to me are super important. And, you know, all of these things that are going on, I have such a hard time with this.
Yeah.
And you do help me. I tell it, you, a beta reader helps say, you know, this really isn't important. Yes, it's important to your book. Don't, you know, I'm not saying that this is not important to your book, but it's not important to your synopsis.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just hard.
Yeah. No, it is very hard. Another thing is don't hide your plot twists. I know plot twists are super exciting and they're fun to have when they're a surprise. But the agent that you're trying to get to represent you needs to know about these plot twists before they get immersed into your full manuscript.
Yeah, the idea of teasing them, that's that teasing theory again, is so strong. But no, they need to know.
Yeah.
They need to know it. I promise you they'll be proud of your plot twist. Just, you got to tell them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is what we were talking about earlier with too many characters. You don't want to cram too many characters into your synopsis because like you said, it's going to be a page of just capital letters and they're all character names.
Yeah.
That'll be very overwhelming for your agent and they're going to realize like, hey, this writer might actually not be able to edit their work or they might not be able to see what exactly is important in their work or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. We need to think of the synopsis as a document that the agent, they don't know us. They haven't read our book. They don't have our full manuscript. They're judging us on this.
Yeah.
So when you're writing it, you've got to take that emotional step back. Yes, I am enamored of every one of my characters, but are they really important to your big bones that you were talking about?
Right.
You know, if they ask for the full manuscript, they'll get all of that wonderful, enriching detail. But you've got to get the bare, big bones across. And that is hard. It is very hard for me because I like all of my characters. You know, my secondary characters are some of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think in my synopsis I go into what fairy does what at all. They're just the fairies because their individuality is not important to the bones of my story of freaking fairies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Also, don't, this is another thing, especially in urban fantasies. You're laughing at me. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble. Don't talk about the other stories in your series. Like for me with frickin' fairies, I'm so proud of the fact that I've got Dern dragons and, you know, all of these clever names that are out there. That's not what this synopsis is about. It's about this story.
Yeah.
Tell this story.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. All the agents that you talk to pretty much say that at conferences. They're interested in selling one book, not all of your books just yet. So they don't want to know about the 10 books that you have planned for this series. They want to know if you can write one. So focus on the one.
Yes, yes.
Don't forget to include the title of your novel and your name at the top of your document. And I know that sounds like common sense, but the article I was reading was like, it was written by an agent and they were like, you know, the number of times that I've received a synopsis where all it says is synopsis is insane. And so you want to include the title of your book and your name. So it would be Under the Illusion, a synopsis, and underneath that, Taylor Ellis.
Okay, back in the day and my time, the dinosaur times, it was a hard copy, so that made a difference. We had on the very first page, there was a format that you put, and then there was a header on every page afterward that had your last name and the number of the book. Since we're now cutting and pasting these synopses and things into an email, where do you put your name and the title?
Yeah, I think it's different with copy and pasting into an email. I think it's different with Query Manager. I guess I would say that this is probably more of a, if they ask for it as an attachment, make sure it's at the top of your document. Because otherwise your name is already in the email, hopefully.
So if they ask for it as an attachment, do you still do your name and address and contact information?
Probably not in a synopsis. I usually see that in a query letter.
Okay.
Which is usually an email now. So it's hard to say. You're right, things have changed.
They have.
But I think if it's an attachment, I think just the title of your book, label it as a synopsis, and then put your name.
Should you do, okay, so you've got page 1, say it's 3 pages. So should you do Ellison synopsis page 2, or do you have a header on every page?
I think I did with mine, and I think what I did was Ellison under the illusion page number.
I think that's what I did with mine as well.
And I think that's just I did that not as a rule, because I didn't find it as a rule, but I did that more of a courtesy to the agent. If they wanted to scroll up and see what my name was, or what the name of the title, what the title of the book was.
The name of the title. I did that all the way through our chapter title episode.
But they could just scroll back up and see exactly who wrote this synopsis and what book it belongs to.
Yeah, if we're lucky enough to have professional writers and agents listening to this, any feedback that you all can give would be great, and we can report it on, because we're new. I mean, new is a relative term, because I've been writing since I was Taylor's age, but I've not published. So, anything that you all and anybody listening to this can give us, we will pass on, because that's what we're trying to do is just give insight into how to do these things. It's hard. All of these things are hard.
Yeah.
So, I think the bottom line is research your agent. You've said this, I've said this. Look at what they want and do what it is they want, because every agent is different.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the notes that I have.
Me too.
I do have an interview question.
Oh, Lord.
Which of your main characters' deaths would you be the most heartbroken over?
Oh, my God. I don't want any of them to die.
But which one would be the saddest for you?
God, I've written so many books. The most recent one, of course, is Beck with Frickin' Fairies. And I've really grown attached to her, and she tries so hard, and she's such a good person. And she goes headstrong into these scenarios where she's very likely to end up dead every time. That I think I would be heartbroken if she died. She's the one I would really like to meet as well. So I think I would be heartbroken if I would be heartbroken if any of them died, honestly. Yeah. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be Beck.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm torn between Aiden and Mac. But then there's Delaney, and I think I would just die if Delaney died. I think
Delaney would be my choice in all of yours. Because she is so good.
So good. She's such a cinnamon roll. Very pure. She's just a nice person in general. And the we get Louie's point of view, getting to know Delaney, and it would just be so heartbreaking.
It would be heartbreaking, not just for us loving Delaney, but for Louie loving Delaney. I can't imagine what that would do to Delaney. To Louie. Louie would self-destruct.
Yeah. So
it would be tragic on many, many fronts.
Right. And it's especially, I'm rewriting that book right now, is the one that I just wrote 8,000 words on. So I'm in both of their heads at the moment. And it would be just devastating if Delaney died. So maybe Delaney. But I love and I love Mac, and I am so torn, but probably.
I think that's why Frickin' Fairies, that's why Beck would be my choice, is because she's the most recent. Because when you get inside their heads, and there's a new book boiling in my head, and she is becoming very adamant
Yeah.
And I haven't started anything with her. I keep trying to push her off because I got so many other things to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of times the most recent that we've been working on that we care the most about. They're all in here.
Oh, absolutely.
Every one of them. But
yeah,
we feel, because we're living their lives when we're working on their stories.
right.
And so that makes it really tragic.
Yeah. So I guess it boils down to Delaney, really.
I think she would be my choice. Would Beck be your choice of mine?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love Beck. She's just a trip. She's very fun to follow as a character. So I think having her just and she's such an influence too. Just the fact that she was like, yes, I'm going to help these fairies, and she eventually wants to help these fairies, even though they've destroyed her life essentially. Yep. And she's also just a very good person. She and
Delaney would probably be best friends.
They'd probably get along very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Louie would know what to do with her. I think Louie would be like, please get away from me.
She probably would. She would not, she wouldn't not like Beck, but she would be like, you are too much. I can't handle you.
Right.
Get out of my life. I don't need you.
Right.
Yeah.
Please leave.
Yeah. And that's not a crossover we could do because their worlds are so different. But we do have some books that there could be crossovers with, which would be so exciting. That might be how we finally write together as a crossover.
Honestly, that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to us. Check out our website at eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. We have all kinds of social media that you can get to from there. You can email us from there. We've gotten some emails from some of you. Thank you very much. Send me jokes because y'all are suffering when you don't.
Also, just to cut in right there, if you guys have interview questions that you would like to hear us talk about, please ask us, whether it's about writing a synopsis or what we think it should be to write a synopsis or whatever. Let us know. I'd be happy to answer interview questions from you guys.
Yeah, we had a listener ask us what the name of our books were, and I wish we were published so that he could have gone and bought them, but I know, but yeah, so anything y'all want to know, we're here. We'll answer. You can get us on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I'm going to try to keep up with our drinks and our recipes and our food. I am way behind. I apologize, but Instagram has those. I'm not too far behind on Instagram. So we'll see you next time. And let us know topics. If you have topics you want us to talk about. A lot of the stuff we get is off Twitter where people are asking, what would you do if this? I'm like, oh, we've got a topic. We can talk about that. So, I mean, we're not saying we know anything, but it certainly helps to discuss these things, and y'all can drink right with us. So come have a drink with us and listen, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.